Hello and welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Jim and Shaun.
Hello and welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. I'm Jim Galante. He's Shaun Gold. Shaun, how are we doing this week?
Doing good, Jim. I think this is a week that we've had circled on calendars for a long time. Before the season started, we knew there were big matchups, and the teams have done what they're supposed to do to get to this point too. So we've got some very big implications this week.
We do. We have some great games. Before we get into it, I want to mention to our Penn State football fan listeners, Shaun, on Friday, we are going to be downtown State College at the Buffalo Wild Wings doing a live show. It's going to be on the radio, Fox Sports 98.7 in State College. If you want to watch it, you could go to the Keystone Sports Network YouTube channel. We'll be simulcasting it there. Myself, Chris Bucanani, Mike Villagrana, who is the head of Happy Valley United, the Penn State Collective, we'll all be there, maybe a couple special guests. That is the Buffalo Wild Wings, downtown State College, Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Look forward to seeing you. All right, Shaun, enough of that. Let's move on. And I'm just going to say the same thing for our picks last week. Let's move on. We were both 2-3. We made identical picks up and down the line. Nothing much more to say about that. How about we move on? What do you think?
I'm good with that. It's time to turn the page once again. Unfortunately, we keep saying this every week. So listeners, we're trying. We're going to do better for you. We're due.
That's so right. Let's hit it. Let's start with this, Shaun. Let's start with USC at Illinois. USC is 6.5-point favorite. A lot of interesting factors going into this game. USC, high-powered offense. Is this Lincoln Riley's comeback? Illinois, speaking of comebacks, they got their behind whooped last week by Indiana. They're at home for this one. Can they recover? What are you thinking?
I think USC's been one of the surprise teams of the season so far. I don't think they were supposed to be awful, but they were unranked coming into the season. They've worked their way up, and they're playing really good football right now. But, Jim, I just absolutely refuse to think that Illinois is as bad as they played against Indiana. I'm still trying to figure out if that game meant that Illinois is not a good football team and they were truly very overrated, or if Indiana is that good of a team and all of a sudden Indiana needs to be in this upper echelon of college football as well. But I think Illinois is a good program, and this is a true Big Ten test for USC. They beat Michigan State last week, but Michigan State is not Illinois this year. So I like Illinois plus 6.5 to at least keep this game within a touchdown. But I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think they have a shot at winning this game too. I think they're a very good team, and something happened last week, but we moved the page, and I think Illinois is in a good spot here.
For Illinois, this could be a great comeback week, a good team, a ranked USC team that they're taking on. So beating them would be really help this season for them, get them back on track. You also have the issue with USC, West Coast team doing the traveling. We all know a year ago what that meant. So a lot of those things. But I'm going to go the other way, Shaun. I'm going with USC. I think they have shown enough. I think for Illinois, the bounce back in 1 week, I think they're still going to be licking their wounds. And with that 6.5 points, again, there's that half point we always talk about. USC with their offense so high-powered, this could be a really close game, and USC wins it by that touchdown, and that would be enough. I think Lincoln Riley's got things back together. I think Brett Bielema's got a lot of work to do to get his team to recover from what happened a week ago against Indiana. I'm going with USC. I'm going with them, thinking that this win will put them on the charts, get them some national attention, and make people think, hey, we may need to watch out for the Trojans. All right, next one up, Shaun. A good one again. LSU at Ole Miss. LSU ranked 4th in the country. Ole Miss 13th. It's at Ole Miss. Ole Miss, a 1.5 favorite.
Well, I really struggle with this one, Jim, and I mean that shows that this is a home field play. Typically, home field means if it's an even matchup, you're a 3-point favorite. So that's saying the market is basically saying we think LSU's better, but the home field means something in this game, and understandably, I've gone back and forth with this one. Maybe Ole Miss is favored for the right reasons, but Jim, I still think LSU is a team that can go all the way this year, and if I'm right about that, I think they win this game. So I go with LSU plus 1.5 on the road. I mean, the likelihood of this being a 1-point game is pretty low. So that's pretty much me saying I think LSU wins this game outright. And I got to roll with the Tigers. They've had a good season. I still think they might be, the best competition to Ohio State right now, and I'm going to stick with that. So give me LSU on the road.
I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly fan in the world, but they that win against Clemson doesn't look quite as good as it did opening week, but still, that was on the road that they did that. I still think that's the best win for these two teams. Ole Miss, their best win is against Kentucky, who they squeaked by. I'm with you. I like LSU in this game to win it outright. I think if it were at LSU, if it were a neutral field, would be saying this is LSU's game. The fact that it's at Ole Miss is not enough to sway me. I'm going LSU. And in fact, to be honest with you, I was a little bit surprised by that spread. And the only thing that makes me hesitate is sometimes when you're surprised by the spread, it turns out there's a reason for it. But I'm going to go with my instincts. I'm going with LSU also in this one. The next one, this traditionally could have been the biggest game of the year, okay? Alabama at Georgia. We know that Alabama has a loss where they did not look very good against Florida State. Georgia had that big win against Tennessee at Tennessee in overtime, but they did escape with the win. Georgia, a 2.5-point favorite. Shaun, you mentioned if it were a pick'em game on a neutral field, typically the home team gets 3 points. This is saying on a neutral field, they actually thought Alabama would be the slightest of favorites. What do you think?
Talk about a line that surprised me here. This one shocked me. LSU, I thought, I agree with you there. This one might have surprised me even more. I mean, from what we've seen from Alabama is that they have the potential to be a great team, but are we going to get that every week from them? And right now, for the past 2 years, the answer has been astoundingly no. We're not going to get that every single week. Now, I do think, they'll elevate their play for this game, just like what they did last year when they beat Georgia. But Jim, I have to think that Georgia's a better team here, and maybe the spread is telling us that that's not the smart way to look at this game. But I thought Georgia should be a 4.5 or a 5.5-point favorite in this game, just from what we've seen. And I think Georgia also saw, they messed up a bit against Tennessee, and they're kind of lucky to walk away with a win against Tennessee for how that game was going. So I don't think they let that happen again here. I like Georgia minus 2.5. I'm confused by this spread, and hopefully, I'm right now saying it's mispriced instead of the market knowing something that we don't.
I'm with you. I feel the same way that I did, talking about LSU. The point spread surprised me, but I got to stick with my instinct. Alabama, now they had, and maybe the market is reacting to their comfortable win against Wisconsin, but Wisconsin's a bad team. They're not good. So that doesn't sway me. They're still, to me, their most prominent game where we found out the most was that loss against Florida State. I am sticking with the Georgia Bulldogs in this one. All right, next up, when you talked about pointing towards this week, Shaun, this is probably the game you were talking about most. Many of our listeners are Penn State fans. We know that. This game's been circled, but from the echo of the final whistle between Penn State and Notre Dame in the semifinal in the playoffs a year ago, okay, fans have been pointing towards this game. My take has been Penn State, everything going their way for this one. Night game, whiteout game, forcing Oregon, traveling the length of the country. Oregon is ranked number 6, Penn State number 3. Penn State a 3.5-point favorite, Shaun.
I'm very excited to watch this game. We're going to find out a lot about both of these teams. Oregon had a lot of roster turnaround. They've looked great. Penn State bringing back a lot of starters, but they haven't played anybody yet this year. So we're going to find out what really is Penn State in this game. And, the whiteout means a ton. Home field means a ton. But, Jim, unfortunately, I have not seen Penn State do one thing this season that tells me they're a better team than Oregon. Oregon hasn't had the strongest schedule either by any means, but their wins mean more than Penn State's wins do. And they've been more dominant in those wins here. So the travel's definitely a factor. The road game is definitely a factor, but I just simply think that Oregon is a better team in this matchup. And I'm worried that Penn State's offense is going to stall. Oregon, we know their offense can put up points. Can Penn State air the ball out? Can they throw the ball if Oregon keys in against the run? And I'm just not confident in that. So unfortunately, I wanted to come on here and say Penn State, but I have to go with Oregon plus 3.5.
That is not a bad call, and I could understand why a lot of the national media is looking at this game in the way that you are. Oregon has looked like the better team through the first 3 games. I think one of the things to look at is let's not overstate the schedule that Oregon has. You mentioned it. Oklahoma State is just an awful team. They're not the Oklahoma State that we thought they were. In fact, Mike Gundy has lost his job because of that. Oregon State, they're not the same team they were in the old, Pac-12. So I'm not going to go overboard, even though Oregon has looked better than Penn State has through the first 3 games. Now, what I'm leaning on is what I've been saying throughout the spring, summer, fall. Penn State is preparing for this game. Mm-hmm. Forget James Franklin's 1-0 this week. All we're thinking about is Villanova. No. They've been game planning for Oregon for 9 months, is my feeling, okay? Now, Drew Aller has not looked great. I'm especially concerned on 3rd down. Quick little fact for you from last weekend's game. Drew Aller throwing the ball on 3rd down, 0 for 5. Not a promising statistic. I do think that they will coach towards that 3rd down. I think we're going to see a lot of Luke Reynolds, the tight end, on 3rd down. Okay, that's what I'm looking for, Shaun. Him as the safety valve when it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, that type of play. Look for Luke Reynolds. I'm still going with the Nittany Lions, who I think this game means so much to this team. On the surface, you might say, hey, you're a Big Ten team, a blue blood. You could lose 2 games and still make it to the playoffs. That doesn't matter. Drew Aller, James Franklin, their entire reputation hinges on this game, okay? Take the Nittany Lions, minus 3.5. All right, our final game, Shaun, Indiana at Iowa. Indiana coming off the huge blowout of Illinois last week. Iowa, it's tough to play at Kinnick. We all know that. Indiana, I mentioned earlier, Illinois coming off the hangover, the big loss. How about Indiana coming off of the hangover of the big win? Indiana, a 7.5-point favorite at Iowa.
Well, you nailed it right there. Is Indiana going to play like they played against Illinois, or are they going to come back down to earth? And I think my biggest takeaway in this game, one, you nailed it. It's hard to play at Iowa. No matter who it is, it's hard to play there. They find a way to keep games close, even on years where Iowa's team hasn't been as good as it is this year. Iowa, Ohio State, games like that, it's always like, oh, you should blow them out, but Iowa's going to keep you in this game, and they do a great job. When their defense, we know how good it is historically, but they do a great job of managing a game and slowing the clock down. And what I'm most impressed with is that Iowa's offense has actually started to take steps forward, something we've been waiting on for a very long time. I liked what Iowa did against Rutgers, and now Rutgers is not Indiana, but I think Iowa's going to cause problems for Indiana in this game. So Indiana's a better team, but there's a lot of circumstances, being on the road and with Iowa showing signs of life offensively. I think Iowa can keep this thing within a touchdown. And this is one of those games where, upset watch is real in this game. I'm not saying I'm going to, I think Iowa's really going to win this game, but it's one that Indiana's got to be very careful in this situation. So give me the Hawkeyes plus 7.5.
I tell you what, I'm looking at the Indiana here against Iowa, similar to how I looked at USC versus Illinois. They could stumble a bit, struggle a bit, but their ability to put up points, it could be a close game the whole way, but just the way they play, the style of their offense, I'm going with the Hoosiers. I'm a believer. They convinced me a week ago with that type of win against Illinois, a game that no one was surprised that Indiana won. The surprise is how they won against a team like Iowa with that tough defense, wants to reduce the number of possessions. And look what Indiana did to them. I now believe. It took me till now, Shaun, but I believe in Indiana. I'm going with the Hoosiers. All right, Shaun, that is it for another week of Shaun's Take. I think we got some great picks here. We got some picks where we went against each other, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Tell you what, how about we do this again next week?
Sounds like a plan.
Keystone Sports Network.